Three sisters, Lily, Sarah, and Emma, lived in a modern-day, two-story house with a built-in swimming pool in the backyard. The house was on a dead-end street next to a construction site. Their favorite place to play was upstairs in their bedroom, where the previous owners had taken down a wall dividing two bedrooms. Now it was a much larger area where they had their three beds lined up covering the length of the bedroom, just enough space for three girls. Their bedroom covered the length of the kitchen right under them. Odd things had begun to happen shortly after they moved in. The house had always felt strange, but the girls had grown used to the odd noises and flickering lights. But lately things had started to get even stranger. It started with the doorknobs. During the day, when the house was quiet and still, the doorknobs would turn by themselves. At first the girls thought it was the wind or a trick of the house settling, but no matter how often they checked, they could never explain why it kept happening. One morning, all three girls were playing upstairs when they heard the unmistakable sound of boots pacing downstairs. They froze. Their father had already left for work. The sound grew louder. The sound of the boots pacing the kitchen floor, undeniable. But when they crept down to investigate, the house was empty except for their mother asleep in the master bedroom. This began to happen often. The girls would go down the stairs and into the kitchen only to find it empty. They would take the bat out of fear only because they knew something was up. They just didn't know what. Emma woke up in the middle of the night, sitting up in bed, her heart racing. There, standing at an old antique table her mother had bought years ago, her hand on the table was a woman. Emma was sure it was her mother. In the moonlight coming through the window, it looked like her mother, that she had just gotten out of the shower, a towel on her head and a big robe covering her. "Mom," she said. The woman looked up at her. It wasn't her mother. She could see that now. Then the woman was gone. That was the beginning. Every night, strange sounds filled the house. A thumping noise that seemed to come from the stairs. The dog, normally so calm, began to growl at nothing, pacing nervously around the room. The girls tried to ignore it, telling themselves it was just their imagination running wild. But one night, I believe they made it worse. The girls decided to play with an old Ouija board they had found in the closet, something their mother had found in an antique store. They didn't expect anything to happen, but when the planchette moved, they all gasped. The air grew cold and the lights flickered. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the board was knocked off the table. A speaker fell from the shelf, crashing to the floor just inches from Sarah. The room went deathly silent. The sisters didn't know what to do. They huddled together, eyes wide, listening for any sound that might explain the terrifying events, but they knew deep down they weren't alone. The girls slept upstairs one night, each bed lined up in a row against the wall, just a few feet apart. The room was quiet, but the stillness never lasted long. That night, it was different. As they tried to sleep, the familiar thumping sound echoed through the house, growing louder and closer. It started softly, like footsteps on the stairs, but then it grew louder, slower, as if something was making its way up the stairs step by step. Their dog, usually calm and relaxed, suddenly started growling low, deep in its chest. Its fur stood on end, and its eyes were wide with fear. The growling intensified as the thumping reached the top of the stairs, and it felt like the whole house was holding its breath. Lily, Sarah, and Emma froze in their beds, listening to the heavy thuds drawing closer. The dog's growls turned into frantic barking, and the girls could hear it scratching at the door, desperate to protect them. The thumping continued, louder with each step, until it seemed like it was right outside their room. Terror gripped the sisters. Without a word, they all scrambled to the farthest bed, huddling together, their arms wrapped around each other. Tears ran down their faces and their bodies trembled from fear. The dog's growls were constant, like a warning, but it couldn't stop whatever was creeping closer. The girls cried, trying to comfort each other, as the thumping grew unbearably loud, step by step, right outside the door. Then silence. The dog stopped growling, but it remained tense, staring at the door. The girls held each other tight, too afraid to move, too afraid to breathe. The silence stretched on, stretching out the tension in the air. The girls clung to each other, too terrified to speak. The thumping had stopped, but the fear hung heavy in the room. Then suddenly the door flew open, with a force that made all three of them jump. It was their mother, rushing into the room, her face pale and wide-eyed. "I heard you crying," she gasped, looking around the room in a panic. "What's going on?" The girls stared at her, trembling. Mom, we heard something coming up the stairs, Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. And the dog, it was growling. Their mother looked around the room, her eyes scanning every corner. The dog was still there, sitting stiffly by the door, but there was no one else. No thumping, no footsteps. I don't understand, she said, her voice quiet, confused. I didn't hear anything. You're the only ones in here. There's nothing here. The girls exchanged uneasy glances, each of them feeling the weight of the silence that followed. Their mother stood there for a moment longer, then slowly walked over to them. You're okay, she said, softly, trying to comfort them, though her words didn't seem to reach them. The tension in the room was suffocating. But despite her reassurance, the girls couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching, still waiting. Emma, the oldest, began to feel strange, as though she was being watched, followed, throughout the day, throughout the house. It was a scary, nagging feeling that never left her. She tried to talk to her stepmother about it. It fell on deaf, judging ears. By now her mother and father had separated, her father meeting and bringing a new woman to their home, into their lives. Things had only gotten worse for the three girls. So much stress and upheaval had come with the new woman and her three children that the three girls didn't recognize their lives anymore. There was real danger now within their home, one that was tangible, dangerous, and unforgiving. When Emma tried confiding in the new woman, she went to Emma's father with what Emma had told her and widened the already growing rift between father and daughter. Maybe the evil that the girls had experienced during those times was what was to come. Maybe it was a warning. The woman had arrived when their mother had gone, was definitely full of evil and hate, and Emma wondered many times after she had gone to live with her mother if that woman had become possessed by whatever had been there, whatever had tried to scare the girls. But they would never know. They had left the evil behind, or they thought they had.